Alright gang, another day. I've liberated the mouse nest, and we've got light coming through everywhere it needs to come through here. Everything pretty well cleaned up. Like I say, I'm just freshening this up, cleaning stuff up. Got the oil drained out. I looked in the oil pan looks good and clean. See if you guys can take a gander in there. Anyway, take my word for it. Oil that came out was nice and clean too. More or less just liberating the mouse nest from it all. These 12 horse have balance gears on the front and the back, and so I've had a lot of people over the course of years ask me, hey, can I put a 12 horse in my early landlord, or in this or in that or the other? You can if you have the grill frame from a B-12, because it is notched out, as you can see right there. It's notched out for the, I have one hanging up there, of course not. It's notched out for the balance gears. Now there's balance gears underneath the flywheel side also, but I do have a standard grill frame out here, or I should say an older grill frame. Okay, if you look here, the way that it is cut out, but it's different. Oh boy. Alright. Yeah, everything got rained on. I just brought all this stuff out so I'd have room to maneuver. It is Monday, day after Father's Day. I want to thank everyone that sent me Father's Day wishes for their Father's Day wishes, and to all the dads, happy Father's Day, belated. Also liberated most of, not all of, the mess that was up here, but we're not too far off from slapping things back together. While I have everything out, mentioned in the first part that I am not going to put the hydro lift on just yet. I want to take care of just getting this taking the place of the old Squire to start off with. I have three of my 4 tires holding air, but I've got a couple that I'm just going to throw on the back until I get the ag tires mounted onto the 8.5 inch rims that I've got. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with Mama Sue's Grasshopper. I'm just going to take them down to Greens Fork and have them do it there. It'll be a little more because I'm having to dismount and mount. So, but yeah, that's where we're at. So time right now is roughly 3:45. Let me finish this up, get it buttoned up and cleaned up. We'll get all this finish getting this cleaned up, and then we'll be ready to drop the engine back in, and we'll see what time it is when I'm ready to drop the engine back in. So until then, be just a second for you. It'll take a little bit of work for Zippo. I'll be back. Now, while I have the engine out, it makes it a little easier on me to just go ahead and lift it up, go through, clean the grease zerks, grease everything up, oil the pivot points, including the all-important wishbone back here, and get rid of all the cobwebs right here. Now this one actually has the Boss, sorry, getting rid of the cobwebs, didn't want to let go. Let me get a flashlight, it'll show it a little better. There's another thing that Simplicity learned along the way was just a flat piece of angle iron wasn't going to get it. So they started welding bungs onto the pivots, as you can see. and in doing so it greatly prolonged the life of the axle. Right here is just ballast weight built into it, and just looking at everything looks like, see, I like seeing dirt and grease. When I see dirt and grease, or excuse me, grease that's covered up in dirt, tells me it's been maintained, except for that is really dry right there. So I'll pack a bunch in there, but I have no play in the steering whatsoever, but I'm going to lubricate the gears, lubricate the knuckles, and they're on this quote-unquote one piece. If you look up here on the pinion gear and the pie gear, you can see there's grease that's been added there. And also I don't see any signs of any oil being added to the universal joint there, so I'll add some oil there. Let's get down here, and that bolt right there is your eccentric that allows you to, sorry, that bolt right there in the hole is your little eccentric that allows you to rotate and set your gear lash. And you don't want it too tight. Stick a piece of paper between the two gears, and when you do that, big chunk of something there. Should I be bold and grab it with my hands? Sure, it's petrified anyway. Good, it's just dirt. It wasn't a raccoon dropping. Let's see here. Just taking a look at everything, looking everything over, and we're looking pretty good. We are missing the pulley here for the mid PTO, no big deal. And we're also missing the, well, not missing, but the drive gear is still got some more to get out down there. I can see, you can see down there, you can see where the rock shaft is at. Well, the hydro cylinder mounts where the, okay, the hydro cylinder will mount on this side, and oh, you can't see, hang on, there, the hydro cylinder will get mounted to this side, and then this bar will get mounted over here. Then the hydro cylinder has to mount in the back also, and it mounts back on the bevel gearbox using a fixture back there. I believe it was Ray Stoddard was the one that was making those at some point. But just lots of lubrication to do, and we'll get the lubrication done so that everything's moving nice and smoothly, and so that I can drop the engine back in. And I'm not moving at lightning speed here. I just want to be sure that I don't miss anything, I don't forget anything, that I get all things lubricated so that it's good to go right off the get-go. Bevel gearbox, very little play in it. I'll also check the level of the gear oil in the bevel gearbox and gear oil in the transaxle. But right down here, common place for leaks. I'm constantly asked what the part numbers are for things, so I send people the manuals, and then I still get questions. What are the part numbers? The part numbers are in the manuals that I send. How do you get the parts? You type in simplicity and then the number, and you'll get all kinds of options. And Brenda at Sandy Lake Implement, Brenda Nouse is and her husband Dave, Brenda is the bomb on finding hard to get stuff like rebuild kits for bevel gearboxes. More or less have to be assembled because they're no longer available, just things like that. So I'm going to quit babbling. I'm going to go through, just get everything all lubricated so that it's going to steer and do everything that it is supposed to do right out of the box after I get her set back down, get everything else installed. So what I'm going to do off camera, obviously I'm going to set the engine in. I'm going to get the engine bolted. I've done that in another video most recently with the Triple X tractor. I'm also going to pull that ignition switch right there and replace it with the correct one. I have one weak. No, I guess it's not weak either. I thought it was. Thought there, yeah, right here. A really weak spot in that tank strap, so I'm going to replace that one tank strap. There isn't really a whole lot else that I need to do. There's some more evidence of mice. Get the gas tank in there. I've got new batteries. My dumb butt went and bought 3 new batteries, and I bought all reverse polarity batteries, just meaning the positives on the opposite side of most everything that I put batteries in. So no big deal though. This is going to get a AGM battery, so I won't have to worry about it for a while. Alright, that's it. Enough babbling there. That's a good 7 minutes and 15 seconds. See you in a minute. Alright, it's 5 o'clock. Want to see how far I've gotten? Hour and 15 minutes later. I tend to kind of go off the rails and make sure that everything is working good. This was stuck, so that's the clutch pedal. So I pulled it off. I'm gonna get that cleaned up. So it's not gonna happen as quick. Oh gang, it is now almost 6 o'clock. When I fall down the rabbit hole, I usually fall down it hard, and I didn't have to do a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, but it's one of those things. It just kind of, so I got this loosened up. I took it completely out, cleaned it up, lithium grease. The bushings are good. It just was dry. It was missing a bolt here, so we put a new bolt in, thanks to Green Mule, Mr. Mule. Also, another 2 donated bolts here. These, there was a high-low on this, so these 2 bolts came from Green Mule as well. Thank you. And then I got back here, and essentially that was the setup that I had for the clutch rod with this return spring here. The return spring on this side is normal. Usually it'll just hook around this back or this forward bolt, but we also have a return spring up here. But the way that this is supposed to be set up, the way it is now, is not correct. There was nothing that helps keep this engaged, but yet allows it to do a little bit of flexing. So I'm going to show you what would have been on there in stock form, because that's what we're going to put back on. All you would have had, simply forward of this, is a spring, a washer, and a lock collar. That's all that would have been on there. And there's a specific setup for it, so I figured wouldn't be a bad video to go ahead and put up. By itself, this is the 1966 Allis-Chalmers B-12 that I was going to just try to rush through and get everything, but you guys all know me better than that. Do I rush through things? No, I kind of like to try to make sure things are right. So, alright, first, now this is your clutch rod, okay? First goes the collar, slide the collar up, then goes your spring with the small end facing the collar, Then comes your washer, just a backing washer for that spring. Goes there. Then you put that on. Then we have two washers and a lock nut here, okay? And this right here that I'm pushing is connected to the idler pulley. So what this helps do is gives you the spring deflection that you need when a belt gets wore out, or if a stick gets caught in it, it'll just grab it and throw it right around. But you'll take this, you don't want to snug it completely up, that's why it's a lock nut. But take it to where most of the wobble is out, and then check it with the, see, no, right now that's too tight. So I'm going to come back, maybe a full half turn, and see, got a little bit of wobble. Tighten it up just a hair more, just because I'm obsessive compulsive that way. Okay, and then you want to check by depressing the clutch pedal and make sure you don't have a bind anywhere. Well, that worked out great. I didn't put a nut on the other end of it. Hang on. Go back. Thank you. Well, we're not binding, right? It just pulled straight through. There we go. And then you just need two nuts on the end of this. And you run those two nuts down, and then when the clutch is released, you want these two nuts to stand. The standoff on those nuts needs to be 7/16 of an inch. So I'll show you what I mean just with the one of them here. And then you're also going to want to compress. Almost a little bit out of view there. There we go. You want to compress this, but not so much that you don't have any play. So we're going to run this down. And in order to do this, this is actually an original Simplicity belt. It says Simplicity right there. Give me just a second. I have to get a key, and we have to mount the pulley before we can finish this next step. So hang on just a second. Okay. Now, before you go just throwing your pulley on, you want to make sure that you've got your shaft nice and clean. Inspect your keyway. Make sure your keyway isn't all boogered up, and you have a couple of options. You can buy key stock in lengths, or pre-cut, pre-made. I'm just going to use a factory OEM one. If you're going to use a piece of key stock and then you cut it down, make sure you bevel the ends a little bit. Just helps keep from tearing up the keyway in either the shaft or the pulley. Another thing, clean both of them thoroughly all the way around. Clean the inside of the pulley and clean the outside of your shaft. And I'm going to show you what a good set screw looks like. You can see how there's no flat shiny spot. It's a nice conical sharp edge. This particular brand already has Loctite on them, but this is the one that I took out. You see that big flat shiny spot? No bueno, no good. Now, I've said it before, they can be resharpened, but I'm just going to opt for new. And this is Zippo falling down the rabbit hole. could have just been done with this in, you know, having it out and running and riding around in an hour. But, well, there's a lot of things that would have just ate at me if I'd have done that. You slide your pulley on. You want to make sure that you keep that key stock, because oftentimes when you're cutting a keyway, the fly cutter will leave a radius at the back side of it. So I'm just going to use the Allen wrench, 5/32, by the way, guys. I'm just going to use the Allen wrench to hold it. I suppose I could do something a little different with that belt, huh? Rut-row. Okay. Let me just get the belt up and out of the way here. If it'll stay up out of the way, maybe. Yeah, I guess it'll stay out of the way. And the belts are in good shape. Simplicity and Allis-Chalmers belts. Belt number 154273. The number's even still legible on it. Another way you can put the key stock in and slide your pulley on, or you can slide your pulley on and then slide your key stock in from the back side, or from the open side rather. And you're going to need to align everything, so just put your set screw in, but don't tighten your set screw down, because everything needs to be lined up properly. If it's not lined up properly, you're going to get uneven wear on one side or the other of your belt. So we're just going to go ahead and install it now, since we've got our idler and all that stuff nice and loose. It should just slip right on there. There we go. Okay, now let it find its happy place, and you can eyeball it, but you're just looking for a nice parallel between the idler pulley, the bevel gearbox, which is slightly out of view, and your drive pulley. And get in there and just tighten that sucker down. With that having that sharp edge on it, you don't have to wrench on it really hard. You see that I'm just using a T-handle Allen wrench, just enough to bite down on that key stock. So now that that's ready, we can get back to our regularly scheduled programming, which is getting this adjusted. Right? Okay. So how do you adjust that? 7/16 gap. So what you want to do is, let me get the wrench. I have an 8-point wrench. You can use, this is a 1/4 inch. But these 8-point sockets are just golden. And compress the spring about 1/3, about like that, and then just check the tension on your belt. You should have roughly a 1/2 inch of deflection, and then cinch it down. This may change, but that's if you end up with some belt slippage. Then you have adjustments that you have to make after this, and those adjustments after this are going to be your brake band. You're going to have to adjust the brake band. Hang on, it's got to be all the way forward. And where I've got the camera clamped, it just isn't going to work. So you guys are just going to have to enlarge your screen a little bit so you can see a little better, I think. See what we can do. That should be good enough. You want to make sure your clutch pedal's all the way forward. Get it all the way forward. I'm sorry. I apologize. all the way backwards. Make sure it's all the way backwards. So I had it right. My apologies. I still need to compress it just a little bit more though, so I'm gonna loosen it up. Yeah, make sure your clutch, I should have this spring hooked up as well as the other helper spring, but I'm just kind of rushing through this so you guys can see what the dealio is and how to set them up and how to adjust it. So, and like I said, we'll just make this we'll make this the end of part 2 as far as the B-12 goes, with a lesson in how to properly set this up. Let's loosen it. It is loosened back up. There we go. And get your wrench ready. And you can even use the wrench to help pull the collar back, like so. Just wedge your thumb in there and tighten her down. And again, the whole reason for this spring is so that it'll take the brunt of a little abuse. There, okay. And I'm going to need a stronger spring to pull back, because the spring I've got pulling back on it now is just a wimpy one up front. But anyway, and then your gap here needs to be 7/16. Well, if you look here, my threads are stripped to about 5/8 of an inch. So no, that's about a 1/2 inch. So 7/16, 1/2 inch. I'm not going to squabble over a 1/16 of an inch, and you shouldn't either. Should be just fine. And then you'll just need to adjust your brake band so that your D-clutch position doesn't automatically put your brake on. You want a little bit of space between the two. In other words, you want the point where you D-clutch and the blade stop, or in the tractor stops moving before the brake engages. And I can tell right now the brake's already engaging, so I'll need to adjust that as well. And that's just as simple as undoing the lock nuts. I don't even know if you can see that. Almost. Just undoing the lock nut at the bottom, another jam nut setup. Loosen it a little bit until you can declutch, coast to a stop, and push the brake clutch pedal a little bit more, and you have brake. So, oh, well, when it returned, it's returning at about 7/16, so we're golden. And then you'll just take another nut and run that up on the back side, and you'll be in good shape. I know, long-winded, but I don't want to leave anything out. I want to be sure everything's right. And the only way that everything's going to be right, and I'm not going to leave everything out, is if the videos are kind of long. So if the length of the videos are bothering you guys, let me know. I can break them down into smaller parts. But that's where we're at right now. We're still in process of just going over the entire thing and making sure everything's in good shape. Like the transmission, for example, the bolt that goes through was just about to break in half, so I threw a new bolt in there. These two bolts were missing, threw those on. What you just watched me do here, pulling the declutch and brake pedal off in order to get it cleaned up to where it wasn't so sticky, lubricating the rock shaft, getting it to where it's moving nice and smooth, going through and just lubricating everything, lubricating the under pivot point at the back of the wishbone, lubricating the front pivot point, just making sure any moving part has some lubrication on it. And you do that once a year, and your garden tractor is going to stay happy for a good long time. You know, metal against metal creates friction. Put a little bit of a barrier there. If you want to use grease, use grease. If you want to use a little bit of gear oil instead of motor oil, use gear oil. Just use something to help keep the metal to metal friction to a minimum. Then when you get these cinched down against one another, just lock them together and they'll stay put. But like I said, I will need to get this in a spot where it is going to pull back and keep the tension that I need on the belt. But that's it. We're going to end this part here. Here I thought I was going to be the guy that just ran right through it, but that's just not me. So thanks for watching. This is part number 2. There's obviously going to be a part number 3, and the more stuff that I come across, the more I'll put it in the videos. So gang, thanks for watching. And for the 90% of you that are not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost anything. And it puts a smile on my face and lets me know that all these videos that I put out are appreciated. We'll catch you on the next one. Later. I'm out.